Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell, News and Views from the Nefarium on July 25th, 2013, the year beyond Thunderdome. However, I want to bring everybody's attention to the fact that they are in the process of redating 2012, according to some, to the year 2015 now. So we might have to go through the year of the apocalypse once again in about 3 years, just to let everybody know. Quick update. Some of you have been asking about covert wars and the clash of civilizations. As I announced last week, David does have it. I'm expecting probably about a 2-month turnaround, so probably toward the end of September, early October. Others of you have been asking about Financial Vipers of Venice this last week, and again, no change in the situation there. I have no idea when that's going to be actually being released. Soon, I hope. And we have a bit of news that I want to talk about in the context of a scenario I've been kind of suggesting in the last couple of News and Views in the wake of Secretary Fitt's visit. And this particular bit of news is very, very interesting. I'll hold it up so that you can see it. Biggest oil discovery in 50 years. This is outside of a town in South Australia, the province of South Australia, called Coober Pedy, I believe. And I want to read this article to you and kind of suggest the geopolitical context in which I think you might want to view it. It begins with the following 3 paragraphs, quote, "In a virtually uninhabitable section of South Australia, a discovery has been made which could rock the world. Some are calling it the biggest discovery of oil in 50 years. Earlier this year, a company called Link Energy announced that tests had revealed that there was a minimum of 3.5 billion barrels of oil equivalent sitting under more than 65,000 square kilometers of land that it owns in the Akaringa Basin. But that is the minimum number. It has been projected that there could ultimately be up to 233 billion barrels of recoverable oil in the area. If that turns out to be accurate, the oil sitting under that land is worth approximately $20 trillion, and it would be roughly equivalent to the total amount of oil sitting under the sands of Saudi Arabia. In essence, it would be a massive game changer. Please keep that last line in mind in just a moment. Continuing, quote, "If the 233 billion barrel figure is accurate, and some have even suggested that the true number could actually be 400 billion barrels, that would make it nearly 10 times larger than the Bakken Formation, 17 times larger than the Marcellus discovery, and 80 times larger than the Eagle Ford deposit down in Texas. It would also mean that Australia has now more black gold than the nations of Iran, Iraq, Canada, and Venezuela." And I want to skip down to one paragraph right toward the bottom of this little article, and I'll be referencing it for you on the website version. I'll put up the link, and I'll put up the link here on YouTube as well. So the bottom line, it says, is that we have plenty of energy resources. We do not need to be importing oil from OPEC or anyone else. And I want to suggest that you read this in a wider geopolitical context that we've been kind of suggesting in the last couple of weeks, that it appears that in the wake of the pushback from the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, China, India, and more recently South Africa adding itself to that growing block of nations that are attempting to distance themselves from the hegemony of the Anglo-American financial elite, or what the Daily Bell used to call the Anglosphere. I am going to suggest that what you see happening is they're pulling in and trying to retrench themselves. Their sudden grab for a unipolarity and global government, basically, that I think that they were after in the wake of the collapse of the Soviet Union, has been put on hold. And now, with the pushback on the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency from China and Russia particularly, and with the calls for repatriation of gold from countries like Germany, Venezuela, and so on, that they have had to rethink the mid-game, the midterm game. And this means that they're pulling in, retrenching in North America, attempting through dissemination, the sudden dissemination, I might add, of 3D printing to bring some form of manufacturing back to North America that is cost-effective and decentralized. The other thing that we've seen them doing, particularly in the past 5 to 6 years, is announcing the quote-unquote the discovery of all of these oil fields, particularly shale oil fields, and then the widespread introduction of fracking in order to recover some of this oil. I suspect that what they're really doing is announcing things that they've known for a long time. What's really going on here is they're developing these energy sources to make their power base, namely North America, Western Europe, and so on, energy independent of the Islamic world. And I suspect there's two agendas going on here. The first agenda is that of Samuel P. Huntington's book, The Clash of Civilizations. You'll recall in that book that Huntington outlined the Islamic civilization as one of those civilizations, specifically that would be a troublesome civilization for the West to manipulate and maneuver. I suspect there's something even more dangerous going on, and that is before they make any direct strikes or interdictions against that world, they need to secure independent energy and oil supplies. And this is what we see them doing. In other words, this is part of that retrenchment process that I think has been going on for about past 5 or 6 years. The interesting thing about it, and I've mentioned this before, is that the oil reserves up in southwestern North Dakota, northwestern South Dakota, and Montana were known to be there for quite a long time. When I was a boy growing up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, during E-Day in the 1970s, this very field and the techniques of fracking and shale oil recovery was mentioned as a source of energy, an independent, homegrown American-Canadian source of energy that could easily be developed. So it was known to people living in the Dakotas for a long, long time. What's made it public is the fact that they have pushed this oil field out into public view. I'm going to suggest that probably this is the case with this oil field near Coober Pedy in South Australia, that they have probably known about the existence of this huge oil reserve for a long time. What they're really announcing is their intention to develop it and to increase the independence of the Western world from Middle Eastern oil. In other words, this is part of that great big retrenchment that we see going on with finances, that we see going on with 3D printing, that we see even going on with the NSA data mining affair. And I want to say something about that while we're on that subject, because there has been, as we've been talking here in the news and views, a push against the U.S. dollar reserve currency status. And Daniel Degree and I just recorded a lengthy set of members area interviews on the website talking about this very thing. But to put it succinctly, I think that the original plan was to move the U.S. dollar from petrodollar reserve status to food reserve status using GMOs. The trouble is, this is not going to materialize precisely because of the pushback that we've seen from the BRICS nations, India in particular, but also Russia and more recently Western Europe, being started by France, moving very quickly to Poland and Germany, then Italy, and like we indicated last week, Italy is now joined in this protest against GMOs. And I suspect it's going to be an issue in the current trade negotiations between the United States and Western Europe. And I don't think the Europeans are going to cave on this, nor should they. So this means that the Anglosphere, the Anglo-American financial oligarchy, has to come up with another way to save the dollar. And with the Chinese buying, and the Russians incidentally, buying gold in massive amounts, rest assured they're going to do this. And I'm going to suggest that the other part of the reason for the NSA and Western intelligence agencies vastly expanding their electronic surveillance capability is that they are intending to create a massive new clearing capability, one entirely in the hands of Western intelligence, bypassing even entities like SWIFT in Brussels, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Transfer, and the CHIPS clearing facility in North America. The goal here is going to be to move to an information-backed currency, and that's going to be quite an interesting thing. Because I'm going to be talking about that a little bit in Financial Vipers of Venice and more so in the sequel. So I view all of this, these announcements, energy announcements, this one in particular in South Australia, as being an announcement of the retrenchment process that's underway. And rest assured, this would explain yet another reason why the Anglosphere is increasing its grip on that particular country as well. So something to watch, and probably an area of increasing friction between the United States and China, so we're going to have to watch that as well. This will position Australia to be the linchpin of the West in terms of the geopolitical strategy that the United States has been pursuing in the last 2 to 3 years in that region, trying to secure the straits in Malaysia, trying to maintain Japan firmly within the Western camp, and so on. So something definitely to watch, folks. Stay tuned next week for news and views. We do have a members vid chat tomorrow, so I hope I'll see everybody there. That's going to begin about 8 o'clock Central Time. We always have an international audience. It's a lot of fun, so get your questions in early. And I'll see you everybody on the flip side.